Hi, how are you doing? I thought I'd resume my journaling to you. I've been on kind of a hiatus for the last 3 years or so. Boy, I tell you, it's been a whirlwind time. Um, all kinds of things have happened over the last 3 years. I moved to Santa Barbara, then moved to Goleta, and then I'm now living in Santa Maria. So lots of change, at least for me, over the last 3 years. And I think there's been lots of change for you as well. You're now a student at Cal Poly, a freshman. Oh my gosh, so exciting. So happy for you to see those changes. You know, leaving home is an important change. It is up there with things like marriage and death and divorce, and it's a major life shift. And you're no longer living at home, and you're living in a dorm room, and that comes with it lots of opportunities. Of course, you're going to school, and there's so much to learn, so many opportunities for you to use your powers of creativity and imagination and action. And wow, it's just so amazing, so amazing. I'm so glad to see this transition. So happy that we were able to make it, together in many ways. And wow, just glad to see you getting up on your own 2 feet. You are flying, girl. You have flown the nest. And I think that's pretty exciting. And I'm really happy to see it. And you're flying out of the nest so capably. In fact, I'm thinking about, you were able to get into a really challenging school. And I could just imagine what your grades must have been. And wow, so fantastic. I'm so glad for you. It really couldn't have happened to a nicer person. So, I just get to sit back and watch you fly. And I'm so glad for it. So yeah, like I said, I've really wanted to start up this journal again, and I know it's been about 3 years, and I've kind of missed it a little bit, and I just want to start again, start afresh, start anew, and reach out, connect, and be there, be available, at least in this way. And so let's see, what's been on my mind? Well, starting this new journal's been on my mind. I'm thinking about, there's a lot of things I want to do. I actually just applied for a new job. We'll see how that goes. I do this all the time. Believe it or not, your father's pretty ambitious. And I don't necessarily emphasize that necessarily. And in fact, if anyone looked at me over the years, I don't really think that they would see a person who was especially ambitious. But at least in my eyes, I am. And I'm always looking forward to new opportunities to grow and challenge myself. And really, the reality is, have more fun. That's right, because you can have fun in one place at one time, and that's great. And I'm just wanting to keep the fun going. And there might be other places where I can have more fun and learn and grow. In a way, the bottom line is that it doesn't matter where you're learning and growing. For me, it's just a process. I learn and grow all the time. And it doesn't matter where I am and what I'm doing. And I think as I get older, I become a little more interested. Here's the reason. I get older and I recognize that time is short. We don't have a lot of time on this planet living our lives, and we do the best we can. But I think time is probably the resource which is the most limiting. Believe it or not, it's not money. Even though a lot of people seem to think it is, I don't think it is money. If the scarce resources are things like time and energy, I guess money can be described as a kind of energy, and That makes total sense. But I'm just, you know, looking to the future. It reminds me of the Stoic saying. It's memento mori. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but the Stoics had this saying called memento mori, which is a Latin phrase, and it means remember your death. And when a person, at least the intention of that is for people to recognize that tomorrow isn't promised to anyone. You know, right now I'm about 51 years old, and I think I checked the IRS tax charts to find out how long the IRS thinks that I will live. And the IRS said that I'll live, since I've made it to age 51 as a male, that I'll make it for, I'll stay alive for another 32 years. I think it said something like that. Or no, it was 36 years. 36 years. And, you know, leave it to the tax people to really get a grip on how long they expect people to live. So I'm thinking, okay, another 35, 36 years. That sounds great. That puts me in my mid 80s, maybe mid to late 80s, which is great. I mean, that's phenomenal. And but that is only about 30 or so years, and that's if everything goes well. That's if I don't get into a car accident or fall down the stairs, or, you know, and there's a lot of ifs, because as a person who's been driving on the road and on the freeway for years, these days it's a little treacherous. You know, a lot of people are using their smartphones while they're driving, and it's you know, it's important to stay safe on the roads these days. There's a lot of distractions. There's the radio and family maybe in the back seat, and there's smartphones and text messages and alarms going off everywhere. Everybody's got to cope with these in the cab of your car. And, you know, the road is, I don't think it's as safe a place as it used to be, mainly because of that. It's true that there are a lot of car accessories out there which provide a lot of safety features, and that's wonderful. That's quite amazing. And we also have wonderful safety standards out there, and they're getting tighter and more restrictive. And I do have a general sense that from a technological standpoint, we're doing better in terms of the engineering of cars for enhanced safety, and I'm really glad for that. But technology is also hitting us in another way, and that it's being quite distracting. And not only that, but life these days moves a lot faster. And so there's risk. There's risk on the roads, and there's all kinds of risk. And people are, you know, there's a lot of uncertainty about getting in accidents on roadways. Anyway, my point is that, you know, it's important to pay attention to our mortality, because the future isn't promised to anyone. And what's beneficial about that, but about knowing that and paying attention to it, is that there's a sense of urgency that comes from that awareness, you know, and it relates to your values and your goals in life. If you want things to happen, it's memento mori. That phrase sort of hurries you in the direction of your goals and makes it more imperative for you to spend that time in ways that are important, instead of maybe spending that time in fruitless endeavor or in relaxation or recreation. That is, if those goals that you have or have to do with sort of executing in the external world. You know, it's true. When I think of memento mori, one thing I've recognized is that I don't actually have a lot of physical external goals. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but my goals tend to be inner goals. They tend to be help ensure it has my goals tend to be about maintaining my attitude. They tend to be about how I'm feeling and how I want to be feeling. A lot of my goals relate to what's um, important to me, at least in my internal world. And when it comes to self-growth and self-development, I want to make sure that I'm continually learning things, that I'm continually developing new and better habits. And these are internal goals. I'm not necessarily thinking a lot about traveling to Tahiti, and I'm not thinking necessarily about having a $1 million 401k. My focus really is what's going on inside of me. And I think that helps when it comes to happiness. I think that I've known a few people who've got a lot of shoulds and have tos and musts related around external things. And that's fine, but generally I'm noticing that they are slightly less happy because the fact is it's hard to gain control of external events. Other people, organizations, governments, it's not easy to make change happen. And I think it gets a lot of people stuck, and sometimes there's a lot of disappointment when these plans for the external world just don't measure up to what the expectations are. Anyway, now that's not to say I get off scot-free, because for me, in fact, there can be a little bit of uncertainty about what I mean about maintaining my attitude as I live my life, or ensuring that my happiness level is supported by my activity and the things I do socially. A lot of those things, unfortunately, aren't well measured, and I just sort of have a feel for them. I feel for whether I'm making progress or not. And the fact is, when I do make progress, I'm really happy about it. And there's these little celebrations that I do, and I start celebrating when I make these advances that happen occasionally, when I learn new things from instructors all across the internet and all across say audible.com, or the books that I read through Amazon or the library. I love making progress in those areas, and really just making progress in those areas is great. Makes me very happy. But one thing I do recognize is that a lot of those inner goals aren't that measurable necessarily. Now, every once in a while, I will measure the important things. I measure what's important. And so, for example, daily journals. Sometimes I do like a happiness journal, where during the day I'll write a few paragraphs about what I'm looking forward to and what's important to me. And a lot of the time, these happiness journal entries relate to what's bothering me, or what I'm optimistic about in the future. And it helps get my bearings in that particular endeavor. I do want to try to meet my standards as it relates to being happier. And sometimes writing it down on paper is really helpful, because that's just an objective way for me to get down on paper what's going on in my mind. So overall, my progress on my inner goals is fairly subjective, but I do very occasionally produce records about where I am in the moment. And I find that to be really helpful. And the reason why these records are helpful is that I get to analyze them and think about how I'm phrasing my issues and problems, whether like there's a should statement inside of a paragraph or a must statement. And I can describe like the language, whether it's like victim language or any other kind of language that might be challenging for me in the moment. Anyway, it's quite helpful, and it also creates a historical record. So, I can see my progress over time because I do, at least I did. I mean, I actually do have records that I sort of obtain, that I collect over time, and I can look in the past and see where I've come, and that's pretty helpful. Anyway, another topic. I was thinking that I would like to talk about movies. Um, I have been, I've actually not been watching a lot of movies lately, but I think I want to start watching YouTube and watching some movies there. One show that's on YouTube is Little House on the Prairie, and I've been reading a book recently by Laura Ingalls Wilder. It's a book called The Long Winter, and I just finished it recently, like within the last 1 or 2 days, and it was a great book. The reason I started reading the book was because I wanted to get in the mood of fall and winter time, and so I wanted to read a spooky book or a cozy book, and this book by Laura Ingalls Wilder really fit the bill. It sure was really enjoyable to read. I had a great time just going through all the stories, and I loved how the book talks about family and this pioneer family that is struggling to survive through a long winter where they almost starve. And they got really close to starving because the train wasn't able to get to the town where they lived on because the snow was on the tracks. Anyway, this book is connecting this idea to the movie's idea. I think I want to watch a little more Little House on the Prairie episodes on YouTube. I think that could bring me a lot of enjoyment, and I think that I can really begin to understand more deeply some of the characters and where they're coming from since I've read the book. In fact, that's an interesting thing that I like to do in general, and that is I like to read books, and then if there are any movies based on that book, I want to watch the movie. And I find that gives me a lot of insight into what the director and the producer are trying to do to convey this story. I love having extra insight into a story when I watch it on the movie screen. And I'm able to nitpick sometimes and say, hey, this wasn't in the book, or this person wouldn't do that, or maybe I can also express my appreciation for how creative the director was, and how just inspiring the actors are to portray this particular episode on the screen. Yeah. So I'm actually pretty excited to watch Little House on the Prairie, a few episodes of that. When I was growing up, my mom, Barbara, was really interested in Little House on the Prairie. I think she used to cry all the time when she was watching that movie. And that's because there was a lot of drama in the TV show. There were all kinds of things happening that were risky, like people being thrown off horses and bears coming out of the woods, and all kinds of mountain lions. There's all kinds of threats that were sort of assailing this family, this pioneer family. And but one by one, they overcame them. That family also overcame social problems. They lived in small towns, and they had to get along with their neighbors, and that wasn't always very easy. I mean, you don't necessarily get to choose all of your neighbors, even if you are living as a pioneer. It's not easy. I know there were a lot of episodes where Laura Ingalls would go to school, and she'd have a lot of challenges with the other students there. And anyway, I appreciate this account, even if it's a fictional account, this account of the Ingalls and how they're surviving out there in the middle of a wilderness. Pretty amazing. So I'm looking forward to taking a look at those YouTube videos of this historical archive of that TV show, and just getting greater appreciation for the characters. The thing about it, though, I'm a little concerned. Like I was mentioning, the stories they can have some drama in them. There are people, they can have some drama. And here's the thing: as I've grown older, I think I've become less tolerant for lots of drama. When I was a kid, I used to watch like horror movies every once in a while, or car chases, and I really enjoyed that drama. But as an adult, as an older adult in particular, I am less interested in drama. I'm much more interested in having a peaceful experience at the movie theater in front of the television set. In fact, that's one of the wonderful reasons I love this book by Laura Ingalls Wilder. In The Long Winter, is because there's not that much drama. Generally things work out in the end okay, and there's stress and struggle, and in fact, there's actually protection against there being a lot of drama, and that's Laura. Laura is this wonderful character, and part of her personality is that she tries to be optimistic and forthright, and tries to do the right thing, and tries to do what her parents want her to do, and it's very admirable. Laura displays a lot of virtues, and but I think she's part of the reason that, for me, the book doesn't go off the rails because things are going well. Generally, they're going well. And in fact, Laura's parents are just such pros at pulling together a household. The mother is just cooks up a storm, and her father is just always getting things done, building things and getting the fire and getting food and going hunting, and he's just a powerhouse. They're both Laura's parents are both energetic powerhouses, and it's inspiring to read. In fact, it makes me sort of I think it inspires me to be more of a powerhouse when it comes to any kind of activity. I think I think I remember Michael Landon. Now, you may not have any memories of Michael Landon, but he was a beloved actor, and I know I really appreciated his work. I enjoyed what he did on the screen when I saw it on television. And what a sad day when I learned that he had died. I forget what precisely he had died from, but there was a lot of goodwill associated with him, and as an actor, I think partly because of the Little House series. In fact, maybe even mostly because of the Little House series. His character was so amiable. He was a really great example of like a peaceful, gentle, powerful, masculine figure, which, interestingly enough, in television today, we don't get a lot of examples of. Yeah, we get superheroes, I suppose. Anyway, Laura's father was definitely a superhero of sorts, sort of a cowboy superhero. And not so much a cowboy, but more of a pioneer superhero. Just, anyway, he has a lot of traits. He and his mother, he and his wife have a lot of traits that I enjoy reading about. It's kind of funny. Reading a book could give people insight. It helps when it comes to empathy. I know as I read, I feel empathy for the family, for Laura, for her mother and father, for them in the wilderness, in the shacks that they live in. Really, reading is a very empathy. It's a very strong empathy experience, and I don't know. I just appreciate that. I think I read an article on the internet that suggested that people who read a lot have a really strong sense of empathy. And you know what? There is something very empathetic about reading. In a way, you've got to put your mind and imagination in the author's story, and that takes focus and creativity. And you're paying attention to that story, and you're sort of feeling the feelings that the author is talking about in their narrative. They use lots of words that are emotive, and these stories quite often have some drama. There's sometimes there's like a protagonist and an antagonist, and there are challenges that everyone is moving through. Yeah, it's a very empathic experience. I mean, I have, in fact, I think probably one of the main feelings that I have when I read fiction or nonfiction is compassion. Well, certainly fiction. I think compassion. I think reading is probably a very strong exercise in compassion. Not so much for nonfiction, except for perhaps if it's a biography. Now, I don't read biographies very often, but sometimes I do read pop science. And there's not necessarily a place for empathy in pop science because a lot of it is invention and curiosity. I think curiosity is key when someone is reading pop science. It's like, it's the motivation that keeps you going from subject area to subject area. It's your desire to learn about the world and the impacts that inventions have on the world. So there's like a really strong curiosity component. And generally for fiction, it's a compassion component. It's an empathy component that gets exercised. So really, whether, and of course there's a lot of back and forth for this because there's a lot of intellectual stimulation when anyone reads any book, right? But anyway, I was thinking about the virtues and the strengths of readers. And I guess curiosity and empathy are two significant strengths that readers develop when they read books. And what's wonderful is that these traits that readers develop are so handy and useful in everyday life. Oh yeah, they're handy and useful when you talk to other people, and when you're at work or when you're in a relationship, you can relay these stories. It's interesting that storytelling it comes so natural to human beings. We fall for stories. I love stories. I love going to the theater. I love every time I've been to the theater with you. I remember we went to go see Dr. Seuss a long time ago down in the I can't believe we went to go see it. That was down in Los Angeles a few years ago. And we also saw The Lion King. Pretty amazing. And then, I don't know if you remember, but we saw another play. We went to see, was it Mary Poppins? I think we saw Mary Poppins. That was a long time ago, and you may not have much memory of it. By the way, when you were a kid, Em, you were extremely patient. Oh my gosh. You were just so beautifully patient, such a beautifully patient child. And yeah, I really was amazed that you were able to stay in your chair when we went to go see Mary Poppins. Almost the entire, and you know what? There was another time we went to go see. There was another play. It wasn't Oklahoma. It was that small town. Oh, it was the Music Man. The Music Man. Oh my gosh, you were so good at just sitting in your chair for the entire Music Man show. I was just amazed. Anyway, you had a really strong attention span growing up. very strong attention. I think your attention span might have been the strongest of the both of us, although we were both pretty focused, I think. But I do remember you putting together like long strings of beads and these beautiful necklaces and bracelets that you put together. It took a lot of focus, and I know you used to play with your play sets, your plastic play sets. Oh my gosh, so adorable when I think back. It was an amazing time, and those memories bring joy to me nearly every day, and I'm so glad to have had them. So anyway, getting back to movies. Yeah. By the way, I did want to mention that I am starting another book. It's a biography of Benjamin Franklin. And I don't know, I just finished probably the last, I don't know, probably 30, 40 pages of it. It's pretty good. I'm enjoying learning about Benjamin Franklin. Such an incredible personality. And world traveler, at least. He traveled to England, I suppose. I don't know if that's so much. Maybe back then that was a huge world traveling event. And personally, I've never been myself, and I hope to go to Europe one of these days. But I guess Benjamin Franklin spent a lot of time in Philadelphia. so anyway, I'm tracking that and enjoying what I'm reading about Benjamin Franklin. Turns out I did not know a lot, but I'm learning more and more as I go. So I'm looking forward to it. The writing is good, which is nice. So beyond that, book stuff. I'm wondering if there are any interesting movies about Benjamin Franklin. Maybe biographies or autobiographies of Benjamin Franklin. I bet you there are. And there's none that pops into my mind right now. But I have a feeling that there's probably a few movies out there like that. I would definitely like to see that. Once I finish this book, by the way. Other books I've been reading The Hardy Boys, believe it or not. And the reason is because the Hardy Boys are kind of like a mystery genre. And it's part of this spooky, mystery, cozy drama that I want to get into. Believe it or not, this teen literature, this juvenile literature, is interesting to me. I kind of grew up with it. I actually didn't read The Hardy Boys when I was growing up as a kid. It just wasn't anything that really stuck out to me as something that was interesting. I had a lot of interest growing up, but a lot of them had to do with science. I had a monthly subscription to the Scientific American magazine. Kudos to my dad who let me buy a subscription to that Scientific American magazine. I really, to this day, can't believe that he was willing to pay for a subscription. I really love that magazine. I would read that magazine all the time. And it was part of my formative years when just before I ended up going to college and majoring in physics and having mathematics as my minor. So it was really influential for me. I love Scientific American. I don't read it so much anymore. Believe it or not, if I don't read Scientific American, I'll read Science Magazine, which interestingly is even much more difficult to comprehend. And it's not that I even comprehend it that well. So I tend to read like nature, science periodicals. These are periodicals that show up in libraries, and they are really just collections of scientific studies. I kind of like going through that material. And it's not pop science at all. It's actually real science. It's science. And I like moving around in those circles because, first of all, I like to hear from the horse's mouth about, people who've done studies on one thing or another. A lot of the time it's related to health or nutrition, but not always. Sometimes it's related to physics or science or astrophysics or something like that. I love, first of all, learning science from scientists who are doing science because they're passionate about what they're doing. I mean, a lot of the time, in order to be a scientist, in order to work through all the the details of it, people need to be highly motivated. It needs to be interesting to them. And so I love reading articles about people who are passionate about what they're doing. And what's more passionate than a person who's working on crickets or something like that, and has been working on crickets for his PhD, and he just is just passionate about crickets and wants to get into the into the details about what a cricket is and what a cricket's doing. Now that's just an example, but there are scientists out there who are extremely passionate about what they're doing, and it's exciting for me to learn about what they're studying. And I know they want to tell others about what's going on in their research, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the factual approach to what they're doing, and I appreciate the passionate approach. I mean, you got to be passionate to do stuff like that. That's for sure. And and there's also a lot of I also, when I read those magazines like Science and Nature, I'm often introduced to new subject areas, and so I'm learning new stuff, and that's exciting to me. I like learning new things. I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm taking an Allen Hancock College automotive electricity right now. It's because I just want to take something different. I want to learn something new, something I've never learned before. And thankfully, I don't know a lot of stuff. I mean, I know a lot of stuff, but a lot of the time I can use a refresher and get more insight. So I graduated from college, back in 1997. Okay, so I graduated from college in 1997. It's 2022 now. So what is that? That's 5 years. It's been 25 years since I've formally been in college. That's actually not entirely true, because I did get an MBA, and I graduated with my MBA in 2002, which was about 20 years ago. But it's still 20 years ago. Management, I have a feeling that the field of management and the field of physics were both entirely different 20 and 30 years ago. So I'm out of date. And I realize I'm out of date. Even when it comes to how subjects are taught, how mathematics is taught, how physics is taught, how financial management is taught, it's a little bit different. And in the last 20 or 30 years, we've learned new things. And I want to learn those new things in those fields and in other fields. And so I'm really interested in learning new stuff. And it's just exciting to me. And so anyway, I'm taking my automotive electricity class. We've got a midterm coming up on Wednesday that I'm looking forward to. And I'm excited about that. I hope the test isn't going to be too hard. In fact, one of the things that I should be doing right now maybe is even studying for the exam coming up. We'll see how that goes. I don't think I'll have any trouble with the exam, actually, because I'm a pretty bright guy, and I've been following along with the class and doing the assignments. I am behind about 2 assignments right now. We'll see how it goes. I'm always doing my best to. I got my hands in a lot of areas, and anyway, I'm just trying to keep up with my interests. Anyway, let's see what else is going on. Okay, so I wanted to talk about movies, and so. Here's the question I have for you. Emily, were you a fan of the Matrix movies? Now, you may not remember these movies, but they were around when you were a teenager, and maybe even before that. I forget when they first came out. Like there was the Matrix Revolutions, and I think there was even a third Matrix. The Wachowski brothers, I think, is who the directors were. Anyway, I was a big fan of the first movie. I love the original Matrix movie. I think I might have seen the one of the 3 movies in the series, but it didn't really strike me as being particularly interesting. So yeah, I definitely did enjoy that. Now, I think what was most interesting about the Matrix movie was sort of this idea that there's that we're all part of a computer program, and we're operating inside this computer. And when you operate in the Matrix, you can have superpowers if you choose. Well, you just have to mentally want to do those things, and you can do them. It's an interesting thing, particularly for certain people, like the one, right? And I think that's an intriguing idea. I think everybody has this curiosity about whether we're living in a computer. I know every once in a while I think about how realistic that idea is. And I think it's possible, and I actually think it's true in some respects. I think the universe is kind of a computer. Now, I also only think that there may be other computers, but we're not actually in the computer. I mean, we are in the computer, but it's just nature. It's just nature operating on a different metaphor, and that is computing. And I think that's a realistic scenario. It's not that anyone programmed the computer. It's just the computer that sort of fell out of the universe, after the Big Bang. And so we just happen to be living inside of it, which is great. And it does give us superpowers. Consciousness is like a superpower, and we each have that superpower. We're really basically all supermen and women. And I think we just don't even realize it. Believe it or not, there's something magical that's going on inside of our brains. And in our lives, in our inner worlds, it's incredibly magical. And it's basically a miracle. We all have superpowers. I definitely consider myself having some kind of superpowers. I consider my life as just being amazing. Just totally, absolutely, phenomenally amazing. And maybe just the fact of it. Just the fact of existence and moving around with intelligence in the world. That's crazy. And look at I think about all the components that it takes for a human being to exist on the planet. Bones and blood vessels and neurons and kidneys and everything, and even immune systems to keep bacteria and viruses at bay, even funguses, and even diseases that we're still learning about today, like the prions, or are they called prions? It's just amazing that our human bodies exist at all. And this planet is a wonderful sanctuary for us as humans, but we're not doing a very good job managing it. We're not managing the environment very well, and climate change is a really great example. And we're beginning to pay the price for that with really serious hurricanes and heat waves and things like this. So I don't know. I don't necessarily think that we're in a computer program, except that reality itself is very much like a computer. And I think human beings, at least from what I'm aware of, are incredibly rare. The universe is pretty much, it's filled with amazing things, but a lot of it, at least at the time, today, we don't have a lot of knowledge about. And I think it's very possible that there are beings that are living on other planets, in different solar systems and different galaxies around the universe. That I think sounds very reasonable, given the size of the universe. It's just that I think we're really spaced far apart from one another, and we just can't communicate with one another. That reminds me, that Artemis launch vehicle got put on hold again, Artemis 1, because of the hurricane that's about to hit Florida. And so that's pretty exciting, how human beings are going to be going to the moon again. Leave it to NASA to be that ambitious, and that's wonderful. My kudos, my hats off to them and their planning committees, as they pull all these launches together to create a capability to go to the moon. That's pretty phenomenal. I mean, that's really exciting. It's been like 50 years since we've been to the moon last. The last time we went to the moon, I think it was like in 1971 or something like that, 1970. That's when I was born. I was born in 1971. That was 51 years ago. That was a half century ago. And, it is really quite an ambitious effort to get people onto the moon. But we can certainly do it today. But here's the thing. One thing I know in being in the space industry is that there's a lot of parts and pieces. And to get all these parts and pieces working together at one time without any hiccups, that's actually not easy to do. I just wish that every piece of technology we had was super reliable and worked in every condition, but it doesn't. There are a lot of parts and pieces to pay attention to, and the thing is, stuff breaks. Metal bends, circuits, electrical circuits, there are faults or opens. So there are reliability issues with a lot of our technology. We can do stuff, but in a way, our engineering talent and our economic talent don't allow for super duper reliable equipment. And so stuff breaks. And so that makes efforts like going to the moon pretty challenging, because there's a lot of components and parts and pieces that have to work together, and they've got to work together perfectly with not a lot of backup systems, because we just don't have the materials, we don't have the energy, we don't have the money to have all the backup systems that we need in order to ensure like 100% success. Anyway, it is challenging for us these days. It's possible. We can certainly do it, but I don't know. I think in the future it'll be even easier. What we need is artificial intelligence. We each need to have artificial intelligence in our smartphones all the time, giving us guidance about what to do next. Now, that's not a very popular idea, but I'm really looking forward to artificial intelligence. I think in the development of artificial intelligence, I think artificial intelligence is really going to be just what the doctor ordered. Human beings are actually quite fallible. Now, I was just talking a second ago about how equipment and software and things like that has problems, and it does. Anyway, any help that we can get would be great. Like, I love the idea of autonomous cars. Now, we've been driving in vehicles a long time, over 50 years, certainly. When did Ford come up with his vehicle? And we've been killing each other on the roads, for all that time, as we crashed into each other. Having another set of eyes, just someone to help us out. We've got brain power, which is great, but wouldn't it be great if we had supplemental brain power that we could bring online anytime we wanted to? That would be amazing. And I'm looking forward to that time when artificial intelligence really helps us out. It's going to be a tough transition, because artificial intelligence could do so many things, like create amazing pieces of artwork and music, and and it can also do amazing writing, which is wonderful. But there are issues with that as it relates to our economic system. Anyway, we'll work all that stuff out, and I think eventually we'll all find that artificial intelligence is a super duper help. I mean, it's going to definitely help in the medical field when it comes to diagnosis. I mean, who in the world hasn't wondered about what disease they truly have because they don't have access to all the diagnostic tools that doctors learn and have while they're in medical school. Now, we've used wonderful substitutes like using the internet. You know, we type in our symptoms into the internet and we get, with WebMD, we get all kinds of crazy answers like, oh, we've got cancer or whatever like that, which aren't true. And so there's a lot of self-diagnosis going on. It'll be great once artificial intelligence gets into the fray and starts helping us out figuring out what all of our problems are so we can have them fixed. And yeah, I think it's going to help with driving, with the autonomous vehicles and that era. And hopefully it'll also help when it comes to the construction of movies. Yeah, maybe artificial intelligence will help writers and directors and producers come up with great ideas, story ideas that, I mean, it just opens up a whole new world. I'm really looking forward to artificial intelligence helping us out. And I can imagine that artificial intelligence can help bring peace to the world in a lot of ways. I can also see the opposite happening. Like any new tool that human beings developed, it can be used for good or for ill. And, we just have to be responsible when we use these new technologies. Cars are a good example. Like cars, they are really exacerbating our problems with climate change. And people die all the time in cars. And we're still sort of mastering what the car technology can do. It's been really helping us over the years, helping us get to doctor's appointments and visit our friends and family. But I don't know, there are a lot about cars that is a problem. The pollution, namely, I'm considering, and also some of the safety risks about using cars. Eventually I think we'll master car technology and we'll get car technology to help us out. But it's going to take some time. These things don't, I mean, if you think about it, cars have already been around for 100 years. I think Ford was around back in the very early 19th century. And very early 20th century, I'm sorry. And we've been dealing with cars. We've been using cars for like the last 120 years, and we still haven't got that stuff figured out. I should know because I am taking a college class in automotive electricity. We're still finding our way through fixing cars and diagnosing cars and pulling apart cars and maintenance and all that stuff. Boy, I tell you. Anyway, I wanted to get back to the subject of movies. I did ask if The Matrix was one of your favorite movies or not. For me, it was. I really liked The Matrix. It was a great action movie, that's for sure. And I like Keanu Reeves too. Keanu Reeves sounds like a really cool dude. I'd love to spend time with him, but I think a lot of people would like to spend time with him. And so, I'm sure that he's got a lot to teach, certainly as he grows older. I really admire people who just have gifts. No doubt, of course, Keanu Reeves has been honing his craft for decades. And, he was in some famous movies that I love, like, there was like a Greatest Adventure one. Oh, what was it? I can't remember what it was at the time, but it had to do with time travel or something like that, where they would go into the future. Anyway, that was a cool movie. Anyway, yeah, Keanu's, I really do appreciate his work, and I appreciate his personality, and I hear he's a stand-up guy, so I'm glad to know that. It's kind of interesting. It's interesting how when it comes to actors, there's another component. Like there's like the component of them as an actor, and then there's like the cultural component. Like, you know, do I like him just as a personality? It's kind of funny how that is. Like, it's not that they're just good actors, which in a way it should be, but there's another component. Are they participating in society and culture in a meaningful and helpful way? And if they're not, isn't it interesting how, at least in society today, we focus on, you know, what they're doing wrong, so to speak, or I don't know. You know, our society is pretty judgmental today. But you know, it's kind of funny. Sometimes we aren't that judgmental. So here's the thing about me and my mind. I tend to be pretty flexible in my thought process. And that creates a lot of uncertainty as I move in the world. And I don't know if you've got this issue too. I've just learned to accept it. I just accept the fact that there's going to be some ambiguity in how I live my life, and I've had to do that. I've just had to learn to allow the ambiguity to exist. And we all want certainty, right? I would love to be certain about what's going on in the world, but you know, I think that's part of the maturation process, Em. I think as you grow older, you'll recognize that a big part of maturity is just, first of all, recognizing what you don't know, and then being okay with it, and moving forward anyway. I think that is probably one of the major traits of maturity and a mature person, is that they're able to accept ambiguity and move forward anyway. That's what we have to do as humans, believe it or not. That's like one of the main traits of being a human, is that's to move forward. Anyway, Emily, I want to wrap this up. I want to thank you for spending some time with me today, and I hope your time in college is enjoyable, and I'm sure you're you're taking like downloads, like all this information, and your brain is just like on fire with all kinds of amazing things that you're learning, and I'm just so glad to know it. I want you to know that I'm extremely proud of you, and that I love you very, very much. And yeah, I'm just so happy that you're in my life and things are going well. Yeah, keep it up, girl. I will talk to you later.